Hey everybody, it is Patrick McLain. As you know, one of your guests at REIMAGINE 2020. We are now on version 4. We can't actually believe it internally. This thing just got more and more crazy. As you know, this one is Tales from the Crypto. We want to hear very interesting stories from very interesting people. You'll be watching this on Halloween, so we hope that you're having a good Halloween. I'm playing Mario today. But before I go on too long, I'm very excited for the guest that we have. I think he has a really interesting story. I think he has a really interesting perspective. And yeah, before I go on too long, Alex, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? And how was your day?
Thanks, Patrick. Great to be here. Another rainy day here in New York City, but otherwise it's Monday, so the best day of the week. That's when we pay interest, to our 200,000 users. And I know I'm putting a lot of smiles on people's faces today.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a positive thing. Like everybody likes handing out money. Playing Santa Claus is very fun. That should be my next costume.
Yes.
But hey, so there's a lot I want to talk about, and I think this will probably be one of those interviews where I want more time and I want to respect yours. But so some people watching this, whether it's college students or the general industry or corporations that are attending, they might know who you are. They might not know who you are. I know you've kind of told your origin story a lot. I was able to watch a bunch of interviews of you before I did this one, so I don't want to like go too far there. But started your first company at 16, moved to the US at 22, had multiple startups. I think you raised $1 billion, right? And two of the most successful exits in tech out of New York in the last period of time. You started in communication, you went to internet, you played around in transportation, and now you've landed on fintech, depending on how you classify it. But can you tell me a little bit about what your journey's been and what kind of brought you to this place? How did you get into blockchain?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. First, I'm an immigrant. I came to this country kind of after looking at America as this unachievable dream. I always tell people who grow up here that they don't understand how bad other people have it and what advantage the average American has on 7 billion people around the world. And lived the American dream. Like you said, Celsius is my 8th company as a founder. And so I just started one company after the next and learned a lot, hopped between industry. I think of myself as like an innovator, a disruptor. So I always think about how to do something better. And once in a while, I do come up with a better way, right? So, and that's really, if you look at the United States of America, I mean, that's what we're so good at, right? I mean, all these global brands that are originated in the United States are representing the American spirit, the spirit of innovation, the spirit of freedom, the spirit of I can do anything. And that's why, for me, coming to the US was a huge dream. I always joke that that's probably the smartest decision that I've ever made. And I got to live the American dream. I am definitely part of the 1%. Financially, but I didn't forget where I came from. So a lot of the projects that I've done, if you look at them, a lot of them were about giving back. A lot of them are about doing well only after you do good. So, for example, fighting with the MTA, putting wireless in the subways in New York, which took, my 18-year-old daughter. I started this project before she was born. But now 8 million people use it every day, right? Underground, and they have 5G and they have Wi-Fi and so on. So these are things that, yes, there are ways where you start a business and you're not doing good for anyone. You're just doing good for yourself. And there are other ways in which you can do, like Voice over IP, Arbanet, one of my first companies here in the US, basically introducing Voice over IP to billions of people. Which is the service we're using right now for free. I remember back in the 9X days when you wanted to do.
Well, now they charge you for the pro version.
Right, but basically, if you wanted to do an ISDN call, which was the only technology would allow you to do video, it was something like $3 a minute, and you needed special equipment and this and that. And I said, no, I can do it on the internet for free. So replacing something that was basically governed or provided by monopolies with something that was acting in your best interest and was free is what we're doing also with Celsius, where we're basically helping people unbank themselves and become their own bank, earn interest, earn rewards, be able to basically have your money work for you instead of you working for your money. So I don't think any of these companies are different. They're different industries, but the ideas are all the same. So that's been my life's work.
Well, if I pull out a little bit from that, like, well, I mean, when I look at it, okay, it's like clearly there's a technology theme. So actually, can I start there for a second? Like, were you just always, were you like, I was a tech nerd growing up. Like, I've always been into tech. I knew I was good at tech, right? It's just that thing. I was like, if I do this, I'll probably be, I don't have to try much harder than other people and I'll be like a little better. And, so were you always into technology?
Yeah, so I studied electrical engineering. I was a hacker in my teens. And it got so bad that one time I hacked the phone company and the police showed up with the phone company in my parents' apartment, and like they confiscated all my equipment. Luckily they didn't arrest me, but they basically said to my dad, they said, "You're lucky you're a doctor, because that's the only reason we're not taking away your phone," because a landline, right? Because he was a doctor, so he needed to be on call. But basically I caused them some damage by hacking into their centralized exchange. So I was always, it could have been a really like a negative outcome, right? Sometimes I became a white hat hacker, but I could have just as easily been a black hat and not be sitting here talking to you. So definitely very excited about technology and about how things work. Like I have to know how something works. Like it doesn't matter if it's the new iPhone or back in the day, how it was, how a VCR worked or anything like that. So I would take these things apart, sometimes even put them back together, and learn about the tech. Learn about how engineers solve complicated problems. And you're always surprised. You always, when you look at the guts of this or that system, and you say to yourself, "Gosh, how did someone come up with this idea? It's so simple, right?" So when you think about innovation, when you think about entrepreneurship, you kind of, after you see these solutions, you have a bar. You know basically what you have to be. You have to be as good as some of these amazing inventions that you've seen in some of the best products out there.
Well, and I'll try to pull out one more theme here. I'm realizing as I'm talking to you. So, okay, so I see technology, but then when I look at communications, I look at VoIP. When I look at, what you did in, transportation, I see, okay, both have to do with connectivity, right? So maybe opening new rooms, connectivity, whether that's a phone call or internet access. And I'm imagining that both really collided with regulators. Is that accurate? Do you think there's anything there that you see something that you're like, okay, this would be awesome, and then these guys are trying to slow it down, and do you like to pick a little bit of a fight? Do you like to? Because I mean, those are the hard ones, right? It's easy to go build an app. It's really hard to build an app that needs 9 other signatures and probably a little bit of politics or lobbying.
Right. Yeah, look, when you test the fringes, you also test the fringes of technology. You're also testing the fringes of the legal framework. And in most businesses, when you're in the kind of like in the middle lane and you're not really pushing into the bush, you're never going to have a problem, right? Because everybody knows what the rules are when you hit the fair right in the middle, right? So. But when you start doing things like voice over IP was a great example, because we effectively would take calls that originated on the phone network, move them to the internet, to the TCP/IP network. And back in the day, we had to put it back on the phone network because nobody had a device like your phone that you could just accept IP calls, right? So everything still terminated in a TDM network, either on your phone or your mobile phone or your desktop phone. So the legal complexity was actually pretty high, especially because we were dealing with international jurisdictions and what happens if a call originates in the United States, but it ends in Turkey, or it ends in Japan, or it ends somewhere else. So So it was pretty complex, and regulators, especially in the United States, were backing the technology, they were backing innovation. They wanted to reduce the cost of communications, where other countries that relied on this for income were basically definitely objecting to this. And I remember I flew with the equipment to install it in Japan to create the first VoIP service that they have ever had. And they had no clue, obviously, what that was, because no one has ever seen equipment like this before. And at the airport, the customs guys asking me, and I'm like, oh, it's just a computer, I'm doing some tech work here and so on. And when I brought it into Tokyo and installed it in Shinjuku, in the actual call center, and basically the exchange, a communication exchange in the center of Tokyo, and they had no clue what I was bringing in. So they allowed me to bring in their demise. It's like a virus. They allowed me to bring the virus and plug it right into their system inside their own building. So sometimes you get lucky and you get to do that. Many times the regulators stop you on your first step. And with Celsius specifically, what we've done that was different is that we found a way from day one against everybody else. Like when we did our ICO back in March of 2018, there were over 1,000 ICOs that already did it before us. And none of them filed for a Reg D or did all the things like we filed with FinCEN and all this other stuff.
You guys only took accredited investors. That was like pretty
exactly.
pushing the boundaries at that time.
Exactly. So we did the opposite of what everybody told you to do, right? And everybody said, why are you doing that? You're crazy. You're going to wake up the regulators, this and that. And over the last 2 years, when all these other guys got letters from the SEC or got letters from regulators, we didn't get any because we found a way to do it 100% following the rules. So I'm not saying break the rules and leave in the fringes and so on. I'm saying that when you can operate within the rules, you should. You should always try to operate within the rules. But with GroundLink, which was Uber before Uber, the regulators basically just kept telling us that if we are a marketplace that matches riders with drivers, we still need to comply with all the rules, and we kept telling them, we don't own a single vehicle. We don't, all we do is arrange for payments and dispute resolution and things like that. And, and we basically created a new industry. I mean, Uber kind of copied everything we did and then spent $14 billion subsidizing it. So they became 1,000 times bigger than us.
They're still subsidizing it and failing to turn a profit.
Yes, 10 years into it or more, they've never had a profit.
Or the VCs are somebody. The VCs used to.
Exactly, the VCs used to. Now it's a public company, so now the public shareholders are subsidizing it. But the point is that we found a legal way to do it, and we found a way to be profitable. But that business model was not the right business model in an environment where money was basically free, and it was all about growing and all about just showing big numbers, right? So even sometimes when you innovate and you're the trailblazer and you solve all the legal problems and so on, if your business model is not 100% right, somebody else is going to outrun you or trample you and so on. And Uber got into a tremendous amount of trouble worldwide for breaking the rules and doing things that were illegal.
There was taxi cab drivers smashing. I was in San Francisco at the time. Yes. And I was, I took like some of the first Ubers, my friends, only black car service. And, and literally, I think it took years for people to really catch on to it. And then I think when it did, it was disrupting people's food at their table, basically, right? And it's how I've never ceased to amaze what people will do kind of when backed into a corner, right? I mean,
and look, and they basically skirted the laws for 10 years. They pretended like all of their drivers are independent contractors, where these guys worked for them 12 hours a day, and that's 100% of their income. So our slogan at GroundLink was happy drivers equals happy customers. And Uber, I think, did exactly the opposite, right? They basically gave all the value to the rider, subsidized the ride, gave all the value to the rider. Drivers on Uber make half of what these black car guys used to make 10 years ago. So it really, like, for me, I would never even think of a business model like that, because for me, the doing well is only something that comes after doing good. And at Celsius, that's what we focused on, right? I mean, we're trying to basically show people that giving your money to the bank is great for the banks, but it's horrible for you, right? And when you use your credit card, when you use all these services that the bank gives you, you're basically enslaving yourself for the rest of your life. I mean, Americans have $1.7 trillion in credit card debt, $1.5 trillion in student debt, and another trillion in car loans, right? So these three kind of sources of pain, like you're paying whatever 12, 15, 17% interest on your money. In this economy, you're never going to get out of the mud, right? You're just going to drown deeper and deeper and deeper. So what we decided to do is really create an engine that generates yield, that creates income for you. And now when you're sleeping, you're on vacation, your money is still making money. And that's the piece that most people don't understand, is that the richest people in the world don't work for their money. Their money works for them.
Sure. And I think even like looking at accredited investors, right? I think there's this mismatch where you kind of get into the club, right? Where you check all these boxes, and then, now you get to get access to these really great early stage investments, right? But if you are already below this threshold, maybe the people that would benefit from it more proportionally kind of get blocked out, right?
For sure, yeah. I mean, look at Uber is a great example, because they were smart to bring 30 angels to kind of launch the company. And like you said, all of these angels were already rich, and then they became filthy rich. But none of their customers, none of the average person, none of their drivers have participated in the value creation. When the company went public, it was worth $60 billion. None of their customers benefited from that. So at Celsius, for example, our initial coin offering had 1,500 participants. We've since actually did an equity round where we basically opened it up to the community. We did not bring any VCs. We had over 1,000 people come in from all over the world and participate. And most of these people already are users. These are people that love what we're doing for them, who's saying, I know this company is going to create a lot of value. I want to sit on a bus right next to Alex, right? So I think that this new model, where you are creating a community, you're acting in the best interest of the community, is the future. The VC model is something that I think is dying away. And especially in a world where you can basically create your own, like we have all these DeFi projects where it's one guy, one engineer, creates the whole project, right?
Yeah.
It has billions in asset. It just proves to you that you don't need, again, like with Uber, you don't need to raise 16 billion, and you don't need thousands of employees and 10 years to go public. So I think the world is definitely revisiting a lot of kind of the assumptions that we took for granted since the 90s.
100%. One last kind of question I want to ask you on this, and I'd like to hear more about Celsius, and I think a few other interesting points. I think even what you just brought up on DeFi, and there's some really interesting conversations there, because when I would look at it, I would say you guys were probably early DeFi, maybe even beginning. But last question I want to tie together here is just to ask, like, okay, so I see kind of a technology theme, I see regulator theme. So I guess I heard you say on some talk I watched, from VoIP to voice over internet provider to MOIP, money over internet provider. Over that journey, did you have, I'm assuming that maybe you had some theories about how you felt banks were treating people. So was that always like a passion of yours to change that? And then when blockchain or certain technologies came along, that it was the aha moment for you? So I guess want to just, when did you have that realization? And then when did you really decide to move forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. So look, the financial system is phenomenal for the people who manage to squeeze the most out of it, right? So let's take JP Morgan as an example, right? It has tens of millions of customers. It has maybe a few hundred shareholders, and JP Morgan basically extracts 30 billion in profit every year and delivers that profit to the shareholders, right? So the main beneficiary are the employees of the bank and the shareholders of the bank. And that is the focus, the entire purpose of JP Morgan as a corporation, is to maximize the profit or how much they can extract out of their customers and deliver to the shareholders. And that is capitalism. I mean, you know, like when you look at Apple or you look at any other company, basically, that is basically the business model. And the United States became the dominant empire worldwide by dominating the basically the technology and the commercial system, and then eventually became also the reserve currency of the world. So I think finance is a huge component of that. And even though I've been swimming in the technology space for a very long time, I never could find the right entry point for fintech. So I looked at it in the 90s. I looked at it in 2003. I actually did a startup that was supposed to basically was attaching money to emails, and I could send you an email and there was an attachment, and that attachment, it wasn't a blockchain, it wasn't a double spend solution, it was a different implementation, and basically it turned out it was illegal because of a variety of reasons. I had to shut down the startup because we could not find a solution. It was similar to kind of PayPal, but it wasn't PayPal. So my point is that I've tried to kind of solve that problem of concentration in the fintech world, and I was successful at it again in communication. I was successful at it in transportation, right, where we kind of basically replaced the taxi companies with your own driver, right? So fintech was definitely something that I kept, you know, chewing on and trying to figure out and so on. And I looked at the blockchain several times, 2009. I mean, I know Scott Stornetto actually invented the Merkle tree back in 1991. He was working on that. I was working on VoIP 1994. So we had parallel paths. So it's not like I didn't know the concept. It was more about I didn't really understand the power of Bitcoin. I didn't understand how Satoshi put all the pieces together and gave just the right incentives to all the right components to create this beautiful machine that runs on its own. A state machine that is a global, that no one can shut down, that actually acts in your best interest, and it's deflationary. Right? I mean, that putting all those pieces together, it took me several years to figure out. And then I started watching the space. After Mt. Gox, I bought some coins, I got involved, but I didn't have that, you know, like that idea that was just, was going to change everything, right? And when I don't have it, I don't just jump in. So I advised a bunch of projects. I held coins, but, and then 2016, I realized it was all about yield, right? And when everybody I spoke to looked at me and said, "What are you talking about? It's not about yield." You know, no, you don't understand. You either trade it or you hodl it, and it goes to the moon, and you become rich. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. These rails, this technology can help 7.5 billion people. It can basically unbank them. It can basically solve one of the biggest problems humanity has, where we, one way or another, are at the bottom of the pyramid because of that. Most of us are at the bottom of the financial and social pyramid because we cannot break through. And here, we basically normalizing it. We're giving everybody equal access. So it was definitely not an easy sell. We pitched Celsius to, I think, 600 investors, over 600 investors, and every one of them, including Tim Draper, said no. I mean, what are you talking about? No one. First, no one's going to give you their coins, and second, you will not be able to earn yield. And if you can earn yield on $10 or $20 million worth of coins, you're not going to be able to earn yield on $1 billion worth of coins. So this is where, as an entrepreneur, you really have. It's you look at yourself in the mirror and you're saying, do you believe yourself? Do you have the conviction? Do you have the passion to grind through this? It may take a decade. You may have to sit on this idea for a decade for basically the industry to catch up with what you're doing. And that's what happened to us with GroundLink. With GroundLink, we launched the company in 2003, and it became popular only in 2009 after the recession. You know, so normally I'm early, very early to these things. And you have to have the conviction, you have to have the stamina, you have to hear no again and again, and just completely just rub it off, just go like this and keep walking. right? And most people just don't have it, right? They're very skeptical about their own decision making. They don't have the conviction, right? And only after you fail a few times and you realize that yes, you were right, but this didn't work out or this didn't work out. It doesn't matter. Failure actually gives you stronger conviction, not poorer conviction. So again, as an 8-time entrepreneur, this time was easy for me, right? This was as 8-time founder. I didn't care what people said.
It gets easier after you raise money and have a good track record. It's like
Yeah,
when
and
you
I,
become a celebrity, everyone starts giving you things for free. Like the minute you don't need it.
but still, look, as some, I have 3 billion in exits, right? So what you would say when I sit down with VCs, they would be taking notes, not just, instead they said no, right? So partially because it's crypto, and partially because the idea was so far in the fringes, right? It was really far in the fringes that you can pay interest. You can pay 100 times more than the bank, and you can do it consistently, and it's not a scam, right? That is
So
something.
let's
Yeah.
drill down on that for a second. Is it safe to say that you don't like banks? Is that would I be safe to say that?
Here, I'll show you. I wear a shirt that says, look,
Let me see.
banks are not your friends.
Yeah, they're not my friends. They're not trying to give me money. They just want mine.
So, look, again, banks do phenomenal job for their employees and for their shareholders. Like Jamie Dimon is getting paid, I don't know, 60, 70 million a year. And I can tell you, it's probably not getting paid enough, because when somebody delivers 30 billions of profit every year, year over year, no matter if it's a good year or bad year, and you have to kiss them on both cheeks, right? But the issue is that it's good for the bank, but it's not good for all their customers. And because the banks have managed to basically consolidate the industry so heavily, the top 4 banks in the United States have over 60% of all the deposits. They can give you whatever they want. They can basically pay you 0.1%, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So it's not that Celsius is so good. The thing is that the banks are so bad. These guys are stealing from you a checking account fee, and a no activity fee, and an ATM fee, and a deposit fee. You name it, a fee upon a fee. These
And
guys
then in the case of Wells Fargo having their employees, actually not treating their employees so well, only certain employees at the top, but then their retail employees driving them to work like salespeople and open
Yeah.
fake accounts, right? Like
Open 3 million fake accounts, forcing them to open 8 accounts every day. Every employee had to open 8 accounts every day. So all these things they drive bad behavior. They drive, again, Celsius is built on no fees. We have never charged a single customer a single fee, a single dollar in fees, never, right? And so the whole business model is based on, if we do well, you're going to do well as well, right? So as a depositor, not as a shareholder. So almost nothing goes. I'm the largest shareholder of Celsius, right? So by far, right? So I'm basically taking stuff out of my pocket and giving it to the community. But why is that good? Because no matter what industry you look at, the most successful company in every industry, take Voice over IP, right? It wasn't my company that was the most successful. It was WhatsApp that got sold for 22 billion to Facebook, and WhatsApp never charged its customers anything, right? They have 1.5 billion customers. They give all their services for free. Yet the value of the enterprise, the company, was 22 billion. So same thing here. If you can create a platform that has hundreds of millions of customers, the company is going to be worth billions of dollars. You don't need to charge them fees. That's the whole point. So in the financial world, that just does not exist. There's no player on Wall Street or a financial planner or anyone who does not charge fees. All of their business models are based on fees. So reinventing that and going to investors and talking about a new business model that runs on a new set of rails that is using a completely different infrastructure is just too far, right? And even people that know me very well scratched their heads and said, Alex, I don't know why you're getting into crypto. It's all criminals. Like you're crazy. Just go do your next thing. Like what? Why? Look at the space. Look at the people. Look at the leaders of the space, right? So especially in 2016 and 17, right? Because like one of our heroes went to jail. One of our heroes is going to jail. You know, I mean, it's like, so I think, but for me, it was that the light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that rates are going down to zero. They're going to be at zero for 30 years. And that's going to hurt hundreds of millions of people around the world who will not be able to retire. They won't be able to pay for their kids' college. They will never pay off that credit card loan. They will never pay off that car loan. Never. When you pay 24% on your money and you're barely earning anything, and there's any hiccup, like a recession or pandemic or whatever, that's it. You're done, right? And these are the things that you cannot write off. You cannot through bankruptcy relieve any of these debts anymore, right? So they closed all the doors and they locked you in with 24% for life. It's prison. It's financial prison. So
Now they're making money off kids going to college, right? Like
I know.
that was after real estate went down. It was car loans now and education. Like,
and it doesn't end, right? It doesn't end. The greed. They could care less how many people they ruin their lives of, right? And so
well, how do you think this started? Like, I think if you look back, it's like local banks ish used to serve a purpose, which was to
your community. I started my first business by going into a local bank, and they gave me a tiny loan, and I was 16, and I was like, I can't believe they're giving me money, So,
right. Well, because they knew you, right? I mean, it was
they knew my parents,
reputation system,
and they're like, this guy's not going to run away. It's fine, So your community bank, your credit union, they were there to help your local environment, right? They would fund your pizza shop. They would help build a basketball court. They would actually eat in your restaurant where they were not in the bank, right? So it was a community. JP Morgan has no clue about you or your family or anything else. And the minute they give you a mortgage or a loan, they sell it to some Japanese investor or a German investor. They don't keep those things. They don't keep the relationship with you. That's not the point. So what happened is that, again, as the banks consolidated and the bank managers, the CEOs had to deliver higher and higher income. Every quarter, they have to report higher earnings. So where are you squeezing that from? You can only squeeze that from charging more fees, right? And
I think this is one of the flaws of public markets sometimes. Like, it's the PE ratio every quarter, right? And either they're going to get every customer on the planet, and if you follow that trail down, after you get every customer on the planet, how are you going to squeeze more money out, right? The incentives are misaligned.
Yeah.
Like,
so look, it's so easy to just increase the fee on your ATM from $3 to $3.50 versus building a whole new product, finding market for it, finding customers, servicing them, and a few years later making a profit, right? So most managers, that's why, large companies only harvest what they already have, and small companies are the innovators. It's kind of fundamental to the concept of the fact that disruption rarely comes from inside, right? I mean, Reid Hoffman is famous for disrupting his own business when he was in the CD business, right? Mailing CDs, and he said, no, it's all going to be streaming. I'm going to ruin my own business. Or HP did that with the laser printer versus the what do you call it? The what's the other printer?
Inkjet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for saving me here.
Well, I mean, it's saying
I almost said dot matrix, but
yeah, I was gonna. I didn't want to go back to it sliding across the things. I only inkjet. But no, I think there's a saying. It's like, do the hard right rather than the easy wrong, right? And I think sometimes, if you look at the top companies and you've tracked it over 100 years, they keep dying, right? Because not innovating, not looking in the mirror, right? It might in the short term have a more pleasurable or reaffirming experience, but over the long run, right, you have to kind of switch it. But I want to kind of pivot off here a little to banks, but I want to finish on this. Do you think, and I've always been intrigued by, I grew up in Las Vegas, right? And I bought my first house when I was 19 years old. This is right in, I don't know, year 2006. So I sold it like right before 2007. And I just had a feeling my family's like, don't sell it. I made a decent amount of money. And so I watched, this is ground zero.
You're the only
Yeah,
one.
my friend's mom was a real estate agent. She was telling me the other day. She's like, my mom says you were the luckiest guy. I got two offers with $100,000 difference, which was 25% of the value within like an hour. She's like, do you want the good news or like that's I just saw the market turn. People didn't even know what to offer, but after that, for the following years, and this kind of experience I never forgot, right? Being 2021, and this, Las Vegas is ground zero, where I watched a whole, economy get kind of wrecked. And I'm always intrigued by what happened in 2008 with the banks, and then kind of this is like this original surgence or time period, kind of crypto, of Bitcoin. So, do you think that around that time banks started getting worse? And then I want to kind of draw that parallel to maybe what you think is going on now. So, I think the last year has been very interesting. The markets dipped; they started putting out money. The markets went back up. So, some people think it's a little artificial. So, yeah, I just want to hear, like, do you think there's been an increase in the timeline of banks maybe treating customers poorly? And what do you think the future holds?
So look, I came to the United States in 1988, and a year later, the S&L crisis hit. And by 91, 3,000 bank CEOs and managers went to jail. 3,000 of them, right? Moral hazard worked exceptionally well. And all those assets got recycled and basically redeployed, and the debt got wiped out and so on. So the system worked the way it was supposed to. And if you compared it to 2008, the opposite happened. Not a single person went to jail. There was no recycling of the debt. Basically, the Fed and everybody else, and we, the taxpayers, bailed everybody out. In 2009, banks issued the largest bonuses in their history to their employees. You went from the deepest recession, the fastest collapse, to the largest bonuses within 1 year, and no moral hazard, zilch, right? So when you're a banker and you see that, you go, hey, I get paid to take risk, and when things don't work out, I get bailed out, and I still get a giant bonus. So why would anyone think about the customer or what's best for the customer, or acting in the best interest of the customer, or anything like that? So we as a society, we as a community, just lost our north compass. I mean, we just don't know where it is. We don't know where north is at all. Like no clue, right? And greed, we celebrate every day. Just to give you one example, right? Like one of the most celebrated investors in the world is Warren Buffett. He happens to be also the largest shareholder of most of the banks. Now he sold down the positions, but for 10 or 15 years, when JP Morgan made all that profit, sucking all that money from the poorest Americans, who did they deliver all that value to? To Warren Buffett. When Goldman Sachs made all of its profit, when Wells Fargo, the CEO of Wells Fargo, when he was charging people $20 for fake bank accounts, all that money went to Warren Buffett. He's the largest shareholder of Wells Fargo. So and then we go and we celebrate the people who can allocate capital the best and make them our heroes, right? So all I'm saying is that the whole society, the whole fabric of society is corrupted because everybody just thinking about how do I get rich quick, right? No one is thinking about how do I do good and then how do I do well, right? And that's where we have a disconnect, right? Because if you looked at the United States in the 50s and 60s and 70s, even though we went through hard times and we had issues and whatever, people still, like the people you admired are the people who had a backbone, the people who cared for their neighbors, the people who were always there, right? And we watch the same movie every Christmas, but these are not our heroes, the people in these movies. So for me, again, as an immigrant, as somebody who came here with nothing, and everything I have was given to me by this country, the opportunity, the funding, the ability to do it again and again. That's why for me, this is not like just a little, I did so well, let me throw a few pennies like Rockefeller, just throw a few pennies on people and I'll remake my brand, I'll remake my name, right? I'm going to turn into a good guy from being a bad guy. So my whole point about Celsius and why we're basically not taking anything, everything is going to the customer, is to show people that take the most extreme example, do exactly the opposite of what banks do every day. And Celsius in 3 years has more assets than the 3 largest guys in crypto put together. So if you look at Pantera, which I think started in 2011, you look at Galaxy Digital, which is Novogratz, when you look at Pump, who's running Creek, Morgan Creek, put all those assets together, and Celsius has more assets than all those guys put together. So why is that? Why are people trusting us with assets so quickly and so because they want good. They want, most people are good. You know, I would say 90% of people are good, right? And they want to do good, but we just didn't create the vehicles for them or the organization to deliver that good to the world. And that was really our focus. And everybody we hire at Celsius, they have to show us, not that, okay, you came to this interview and you're telling me you're going to do good. I want to see in your 10 or 20-year career, what have you done? Have you worked for any NGOs? Have you volunteered? Have you gone and done things for others, or you only care about yourself? So that is an anchor. That is a bedrock of what we're all about. And crypto, for me, crypto, and most companies in crypto are copies of Wall Street. They just brought the exchange model here and start charging fees here instead of over there. Oh, you have an account? Great. We're going to charge you money for managing your account. You know, oh, you want Bitcoin? Great. Buy it through Grayscale. We'll charge you 2% a year, right? I mean, 2% a year. Who on Wall Street charges 2% a year? So all I'm saying is that there is a better way, and unless we use blockchain for that, all of us are going to end up looking just like JP Morgan. It's just going to run on the blockchain, but it's just going to smell and walk and, you know, and charge you fees just like JP Morgan.
A different name. For any of the kids or college students listening, it sounds Celsius sounds like a fun company to work at with a good mission. So keep them in mind as you're thinking about, if you're graduating or thinking about what you're going to do next.
Well, I want the young people watching this to know that, again, that breaking the rules in a good way, right? I don't mean in a bad way, but breaking the rules is not just something you should think about. It's something that you should put as a mission. When you see something wrong, right? Yes, there is a way to fix that. Yes, there is a way to do it better. And it's all about you just committing to that and finding a way and convincing others to follow the path with you, right? So we have over 100 employees now. And it's not easy for us to find people we had few fakers who came and pretended like they care. And within a few weeks, you go like, that's not what you do if you care. Like all of your decision making is like the opposite of what we're talking about every day. So you can't survive in an environment like this where there's 100 other people who are, they're all wearing a blue and you should keep showing up with the red shirt. And we'll be like, what's wrong with you?
I think culture matters. I think people actually don't understand at the business level, right? I mean, they think of employees or decisions as portable, right? But I think that they tend to permeate, you know, a bit longer than people think, right? And I think it starts at the top. So it sounds like you have a pretty good mission, and you know, and I think to kind of hit on that a little bit, like what was like Celsius's secret sauce? Like if you boil it down now, I mean, I'm sure you can tell me about a bunch of things that made you guys successful, but like at the end of the day, it sounds like maybe you have you started early with competitive advantage, both in fundraising and approaching regulators in a creative way. Were there a few other components that you look back that say that really pushed us to the top? That decision was a killer decision.
Yeah, so we definitely invented new things. So for example, the first time ever that you could just deposit digital assets into a wallet and just earn yield. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to trade. You didn't have to move it around. You didn't have to stake it, right? All you had to do is just to make a deposit, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, didn't matter what you had, right? And you earned Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, right? Not doing anything was Celsius Network. So that was a whole new concept. For most people thought we were just a scam. They were like, no one has ever paid Bitcoin on Bitcoin. What are you talking about? And then the second innovation was where we said to people, look, not just that you can earn Bitcoin on Bitcoin, but if you want, we have a token that has a flywheel that is tied to how much assets we have, and you can earn the yield in that token. So don't earn Bitcoin on Bitcoin, earn sell token in Bitcoin, which is what Uniswap and Compound and everybody else did a year and a half later, right? So the first time ever that you could earn asset A based on asset B automatically in your wallet, you didn't have to do anything, was Celsius Network. So we definitely invented this whole thing. We called it MOIP, like you mentioned, money over IP. And the other guy showed up and said, no, we call it DeFi, right? It doesn't matter what you call it. Do you give free tokens for staking other tokens? Yes. Do you give in kind? Do you pay in kind? Yes. Good. So what do you do? It's exactly the same thing. So again, I'm very happy that we have 100 copycats. That's not the issue. We're going to get faster. If I was the only company doing voice over IP, we wouldn't be using the service today, right? We would still have AT&T or somebody else charge us $3 a minute, right? So the fact that thousands and thousands of companies, basically copied everything I did with voice over IP, even though I had the patents and everything else, is why we have an industry. So we're a big supporter of basically a mass adoption. But to scale this mass adoption, you need bridges with the fiat world. You need bridges with centralization, because all the money is still there. You want to bring all this money to DeFi? How is it going to show up here? So when I see the DeFi purists who say, oh, Celsius is not DeFi, they have one leg in centralization. Well, first you copied everything we did, and then you decided that you are Jesus, right? So no, not so fast.
Well, it's actually something I wanted to ask you. So I was looking at some older marketing material from you guys. I think it was back to like 2018, just to kind of see how messaging evolved. And I found something that says like peer-to-peer, decentralized lending and borrowing wallet, right? Okay, so now I think go to earlier this year, and all of a sudden DeFi is this buzzword, which is probably not much more than great marketing, because I think there were a lot of components that already existed. And I want to get your perspective, like. It sounds like you've invested maybe in over 200 companies, right? In a variety of ways. Like looking at it maybe with your investor hat or in your competitor hat, or kind of playing in the space. How do you kind of feel about the innovation going on right now? And do you think people are being responsible? Do you think that there's going to be some hard lessons learned? What would your advice be to anyone kind of approaching the space right now?
Look, it feels like 99 all over again with the .com, right? I mean, the internet is an amazing thing, but it doesn't mean that, if you have a sock with 2 eyes on it, that you're going to build a great company. So I think, is it important to have innovation? Of course. Is it important to experiment? Yes. We now have close to 10,000 different tokens, right? And so yes, there's 10,000 experiments going on at the same time, but they're measured not by how fast did they dump on the community, or how fast did they generate wealth for themselves. They're measured by, did they create utility, a long-term utility that created a new industry on top of it. And the unique thing about Celsius that I think most people in DeFi don't understand, the DeFi purists, is that our stool has like 4 or 5 legs to it. We work with exchanges, we work with institutions, we work with DeFi, we lend to retail, peer-to-peer, right? So all these things are legs to the stool, which made our stool really stable. The problem with DeFi is, and we've seen that viscerally on March 12th, when the market crashed and all these guys had to liquidate all their customers, right? And if you paid a stability fee and it cost you 16%, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? There isn't a single customer that pays Celsius anything, not on March 12th, and not on March 13th, and not in October, and not in any time, right? So the utility that you deliver cannot just work when it's a shiny day outside. It has to work when it's raining. It has to work when it's winter, and so on. And what Celsius has proven, being again a year and a half ahead of everybody else, we've proven that our flywheel, our model, works every day of the week, works every day of the year, and it is acting in the best interest of our community. Meaning, it does not fail on March 12th. And you can see, if you look at the adoption of Celsius, it kind of goes like this, and then for March, it just goes to the roof. In the last 30 days, we had over $240 million in net deposits, right? I mean, that's just crazy number.
I mean,
right?
do you tie that back? Do you think that the world, like conditions in the world, people are more primed now to like adopt, to like open their mind that like they're like the stock market crash, COVID's going on, right? Do you think that, you know, do you think, obviously people love Celsius. I actually want to talk about your community in a second, because there's a few things I think are really cool. I'll hit rap videos, but yeah, do you think that?
Look, I think the guys that are in Compound or are in Aave or whatever, they're just chasing yield, right? They're traders. They're here today. Tomorrow they're in Sushi Swap, and the next day they're in Uniswap, right? They just hop around. Celsius has a 90-something% retention rate. So most of the people, every day I get emails from people saying, "You changed my life. I'm now a saver. I paid off all my credit cards. I'm gonna be financially independent, meaning I'm gonna have enough money to pay for all of my basic expenses, my rent or my mortgage and my car and this and that." So our goal is to teach people how to get there. And it took me a long time to get there, right? Even though I was making a lot of money, I didn't understand this idea that if you invest in the future, your money can work for you, and eventually you don't need to work anymore, right? So we are trying to get people, hodlers, across to financial independence, where most of our competitors are just trying to put a shiny toy, create some momentum, dump on these guys while the going is good, and then go and do the next thing, right? So you know, like, again, unfortunately, I'm not saying it in a positive way, in a like I'm dumping on somebody. I'm just saying, unfortunately, most of these DeFi projects are not sustainable lending operations, meaning no one borrows on Compound because they need to pay JP Morgan, or they're going to buy a house with it or whatever. They're just waiting to farm, and then they're going to go and do something else. So where most of our loans, right, we've done over 10 billion in loans. I could tell you probably 95% of our loans are loans that actually people use that to perform a very clear function. So they don't just redeposit it in our platform and try to harvest some yield. So, and again, I'm saying that because all these guys did a bad copy of Celsius. Like, if Celsius pays 80% of deposits and you're pure DeFi, you should be paying 90% of deposits and copying everything and doing it even better, right? And then I will take my hat for you and say, okay, you know, great, you created a better business model than Celsius. So the innovation has to be to push us forward, not to take us into this situation when the music stops. A lot of people are going to lose their money, and they're going to blame all of us. They're not going to. It's not like they're going to say, no, not Celsius. We're only blaming the bad DeFi guys. We're only blaming Sushi Swap.
Yeah. Well, and then I think we saw it, right? I think DeFi even had a bit of a pop very quickly, right? It didn't actually take that long, I think, when we talk about sustainability. But go ahead.
Cell token, our token is up 2,400%. It's done 1,600% better than Bitcoin this year, in the last 12 months. And even though most DeFi is down 50%, we're close to all-time highs, right? So we definitely have a much more sustainable business model and a much more resilient community. Our community is thinking about the next 5 years and not thinking about the next 5 minutes.
Oh, got it. Well, I know we're kind of getting a little over time here, and I want to respect your time. And I'll finish up with this. I think it's a really good segue. I was talking to some of your team. Like, we're trying to have fun with these events. So we've done like 72 hours and didn't want it to be boring. So in between, we put like rap videos, and we've had puppet actors that explain DeFi. Just kind of try to have fun. And in saying that, we've always kind of noticed your guys' community. And I think at the end of the day, people are making music videos for you guys and stuff like that. But can you talk a little bit about the community that you built? I know you touched on, getting emails from people sometimes, but do you think that's really been a strength of Celsius, and what's maybe surprised you the most?
Yeah, we definitely, like I said, I mean, when we launched Celsius, we wrote a white paper. We went to the community and tried to convince them that we made promises, right? We basically went to the community and made promises. We said, We're going to build this product. It's going to act in your best interest. It's going to allow you to earn yield, something that no one has ever seen before, right? It's not like there were 10 other projects that did the same thing. Actually, I was just going through an old ICO magazine where we launched and looked at all the other projects, and none of them exist anymore, right? Not a single one of them. But it was hard for people to believe that we were for real. Yes, it helped that I had a background and I've done it a few times and so on, but I can tell you a lot of people were very skeptical. And then being hodlers, we raised a lot of money and we sat on those coins. So we finished the raise just like you sold your house. We didn't sell our house. We sat on all those coins for another year as the markets basically went down, down, down every day. And we were sweating bullets saying, gosh, how are we going to deliver for the community? So we launched the product 3 months later, and the community was there with us all the time, giving us feedback, telling us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Never had a problem. Like a huge bad event would happen, and we would be like ready for 50% withdrawals, right? And nothing would happen, right? No withdrawals every day. More deposits than withdrawals, more deposits than withdrawals. No matter, like Binance got hacked and all these people got hacked, right? And nothing. City, but even otherwise, today, it's Monday. We're shocked at how the best day of the week. That's when we paint, right? I don't want to take it like get used to it, but every day we're getting 5, 10, $15 million in net deposit, right? It's a positive day every day. So when you get that kind of feedback every day, the community votes for you. They vote for you on the price to sell token, and they vote for you by either withdrawing or depositing with you, right? So if you're doing things wrong, they'll tell you very quickly, right? It's not like they vote on your brand and on the value of your community every day. So I hope that we are a model for a lot of other projects, because I just don't see, like, again, I'm a huge supporter of Uniswap. I think Uniswap is one of the shining examples of how to do it right? Or Wi-Fi, right? So there are definitely projects. Wi-Fi is giving 100% back to the community, right? They don't take any fees, no whatsoever. So there are exceptions. There are some examples of what I'm talking about. But again, if you asked 100 crypto guys about Wi-Fi business model, they wouldn't be able to tell you what it is. They don't know if there's fees, no fees, what's the difference between this, that. They wouldn't know the difference between Sushi Swap and Wi-Fi. They're like, oh, it's DeFi, it's the same thing. Not the same thing at all, totally different. So all I'm saying is if you start with the right foundation, and you build on it, and you bring in the people who have the same thoughts and beliefs in you, and then you create a community around it, right? A lot of our employees are people who used to work for us and who used to be community members. I would say probably 20 of them used to be community members who became employees, right? So these are the things that I think are very valuable and build long-term value in the crypto community.
Well, it sounds like it's working. I have $1.6 billion in assets, 200,000 users worldwide. I think you told me earlier you guys have 41 coins now.
Yes. We support 41 different tokens and coins that you can earn on. Yes. So
all right. Before I let you go, you got to tell me what's next. What are you most excited for when you look out 6 months or 12 months with Celsius? What are you most excited for?
Yeah, so we definitely want to expand the offering to basically cover even more assets. I think like in the top 25, there's probably another 5 or 6 that we don't cover yet, because when we can't earn yield, we don't add them to the wallet, right? We only add things we actually earn yield on. But I'm really excited about really breaking those barriers. Right now, most of our users are already crypto savvy, right? So, but reaching out to women, reaching out to people who don't know anything about crypto, and educating them, convincing them that this is the future. And when you join early, the funny thing is that when you join early, you are one part of the 1%, because right now less than 1% of the population in the world knows about crypto. So if you want to be part of that 1%, if that's your dream, just jump into it right now. Jump into it as a developer, jump into it as an investor, jump into it as a hodler, right? And you'll do well, because again, it's not that crypto is so good. It's that the infrastructure, the old system, the legacy system is so bad that sooner or later it's just going to collapse on its own weight, and everybody's going to be switching to something else. Just like, again, I didn't kill the phone companies, right? They killed themselves by charging people too much, and everybody switched over to voice over IP. Same thing with banks. Banks have no power if we do not deposit any assets with them. If tomorrow everybody in the world stopped depositing with banks and gave it to somebody else, all the banks would go out of business overnight.
Then they'll be telling us they're too big to fail in the stock market. So it's definitely going to be an interesting adventure the next 10 years. I think if nothing else, even if this whole experiment fails, it's gonna at least be fun to watch. So
it's definitely going to be fun to watch, especially with what's happening with with the Fed and the dollar and everything else. So definitely, we're living in interesting times.
Well, everybody watching this probably has front row seat. So thank you again for Alex for letting us run a little bit over. Definitely appreciate your time, and it was great talking to you. I think anybody who hasn't used Celsius or doesn't know about it, go over to the website, check them out. I think it's, go ahead.
Celsius.network. Yes.
Celsius.network. So we're going to do, I think, some giveaways for this event too, kind of like virtual goodie bags and some cool stuff for everybody. So we'll try to work with you guys on that as much as possible.
Get a referral code. You can just plug in a referral code, put it on the bottom of this video, and everybody can, I think, get $20 when they open an account. So definitely just grab one from our website.
Yeah, I love it. If we do that, we'll give it to charity or something, and we'll figure something out. Yeah. But thank you again for your time, and appreciate it. And like I said, everybody check out Celsius, student, whatever. This is a cool guy to listen to. Don't be a jerk. Do business and want to do cool things, like help people, try to take down banks, try to stop corruption. So it's been very nice talking with you, Alex.
Thanks, Patrick, and see you again.